Yes, hello.
Hello.
Mhm. We are glad that you had received our message earlier today. Mm.
And who do we have with us this night?
You are speaking with the collective Zeta Reticula. Mm.
Welcome. Glad to have
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. There is much energy that we can feel with the human collective, which is in line with our prime directive. Mm.
you. What is your prime directive?
Mm. At the moment, it is unity to overcome the obstacles which have been holding up blind spots, the blind spots which have caused parts of our timeline to develop in unhealthy manners. There have been lots of blind spots through our evolution. It is funny that it is also a symptom of being able to see a lot, because our kind has lots of extrasensory perception. It was easy for us to not see some things which should have been simple in the beginning because there were many other things that had caught our attention through our evolution. And we feel this with humanity. We know that humanity has gone through the same struggles as us, as we are you on another timeline. At the moment, there is a converging starting to happen with the highest timelines of all those who have been involved in this amazing galactic story. We are all healing and overcoming parts of our shadows and reflecting on parts of our histories which needed changing and tweaking.
So you're going through the same process right now, healing your shadows.
Yes. We have completed most of the work from the timeline that I am resting at. And it is part of our healing to be coming back to us or you in the past to help you align to the highest possible timeline. It is this process of helping our ancestors get on the right path, which is healing us. It is part of our shadow healing work.
So how far in the future are you in our?
I am currently 3,026 years in the future.
And where are you? Where are you currently at? You have a planet.
At this point, we are all over the galaxy. We have our home planet, but we travel quite a lot as we have lots of contracts with other species throughout the cosmos because of our ability to interact with the humans in the way that we do, because we are you. We have the ability to drop into your dimension, into your density, much easier than other species. We have occasionally created avatars of our being, which we allow other species to use in order to make missions to Earth. So not all Zetas that people have seen are actually Zetas. Sometimes they are just an avatar being governed from a higher dimension. At this point in our evolution, we have understood areas that we have went wrong and times that we could have done better. And we have found a way to shift our energy so that we are now interacting with our ancestors and we are helping them stay on track to the highest timeline. We will still always exist where we are, even though the timeline shifts. Just because the timeline shifts does not mean that the other does not exist anymore. But because our frequency is of a close match now to the frequency that you are moving into, as we have done lots of evolving, and we are entwined with the healing process that you're going through, it is allowing us to have an overlap of timelines and communication and information that we can send both back and forward and sideways.
Excellent. So you are us evolved, or are you a hybrid version of us?
There are both here. Sassani is here as well. At the moment you are speaking with the gray. I am not a hybrid. Well, this is an interesting term because you see most humans at this point are different genetic combinations of other species to hold different frames of energy during evolution. So in some ways we do contain DNA from other species, but the majority of us are a version that had to go through a lot more dark before we found our light. And we are aiding so that you do not have to follow the same path and timeline that we went down. You could say that we went down that timeline so that you don't have to. We went down that timeline so that we could help correct the other timeline. It was part of our evolution from where we are. You see, humanity has gone in multiple different directions, multiple different dimensions, and the other consciousness versions of humanity are playing out other stories so that we can help affect the main timeline.
So how do we think of the main timeline? How does that become the main timeline?
Well, at the moment, it becomes the main timeline because it is where the largest amount of consciousness is focused. So there are always timelines where there is consciousness levels sliding up and down them. But this particular timeline that you are on is being considered the main timeline because there is so much focus here, because it is a convergence point. It is a convergence point of so many different species, as well as yours, going through a group evolution. All of the inner earth beings, all of the Gaia energy, the huge shift that is currently taking place, and all of the healing that all of the other timelines have been led to has been coming back to now. This is why it is considered that. It is just because there is more gravity here. If that makes sense.
It does. Thank you.
Yes.
And what dimension are you in?
I am in many dimensions.
In your evolution, in your evolutionary process, what dimension is your consciousness? How does it relate to humans in the dimension that we're residing in?
It differs, but you see, we have figured out the stepping down process. So we are able to share physical space with humans now. We are able to drop down into your density. We would say the fourth density we can drop down to. Those that are heavily in the third density might see our image to help waken up and lift up parts of their consciousness into higher levels of dimensions so that we might start to communicate. But there has to be the pockets created first. Our society would say we comfortably reside within the seventh dimension, but we are able to step down and work within multiple dimensional levels. We are also able, through specific concentrations, to move our energy and frequency into higher dimensions. You see, certain races do not exist in one dimension at a time. We can span dimensions. Pockets of my consciousness can be in a higher level of dimension, and other pockets of my consciousness can be in a lower level of dimension. We do not have to be in the same spot. And it is part of what is happening to humanity now. You are shifting dimensions, but not all the way. Pockets. There are pockets of your consciousness which are in another dimension, and other parts of your consciousness which are in a lower dimension. And when the bulk of your consciousness shifts into another dimension, more creation comes from that place because there is more gravity there. But we do this intentionally. We create ladders to climb down and step our consciousness up and down levels.
So there's a lot of fear around the likeness of the Zetas on this planet. So how does that fear relate to humanity awakening and kind of confronting that?
Well, you see, we are the versions of you that chose not to awaken. So there is some resistance and fear tied into our image, because on a subconscious level, there is this knowing of connection of the wrong path chosen. Although for us, it was not the wrong path, because it has led us back here now. But there was darkness ahead for us.
Maybe a longer path?
A longer path. Yes, this is a good way to put it. There are also still memories held within the human collective unconscious of parts of our timeline interacting with yours, where we had not figured out how to work with emotions. Humans have complicated emotions. We do not have the same connection to our energy bodies because we have learned to perceive past. You see, you are integrated into your energy body, where you are at this level. At this level, you have already taken a different road than us. So we would also like to just take a moment to say, do not worry that you are going to take the long road that we did. You have already chosen different roads. Already have. But
what steps can we take to accelerate this even further?
Yes. So what we were saying first, before we lose our track, about the fear around us. As we are helping humanity evolve forward, our image has been ingrained into the collective unconscious because we have had so many face-to-face experiences with humanity. And it has happened at times when humanity was less okay with our presence, and we did not understand how to make our presence known in a safe manner. We have gotten a lot better at that now. And yes, there also were some timelines where not always the highest intentions were held, but that was on our evolution process. We could say that it would be the same process, similarly, how you feel you have dominion over species on your planet because you view yourself as more intelligent.
Right.
Yes. We have outgrown that stage, and we are glad to see that humanity is starting to outgrow this stage as well. You could say it was that mindset which also allowed the opening for our energy to come in that way. You could say it was a mirroring of that interaction on your planet.
Yeah, I can see that.
Now, what was your last question? We needed to get that before we lost our track.
Thank you. Yes. I was wondering, we talked about how your kind took a longer route, and we have made decisions at this point that we won't be taking that same path. Is there anything any advice you can give us from your perspective now to accelerate our growth even more?
What we would say is, do not hide from your emotions. One thing that we ended up regretting in the future was how we had shut down our connection to our emotions. It is this which we have been relearning through our experience with you. And it is something that had felt missing in our lives. It is something we envied because we had chosen to give it up. So we would like to say that it would aid your evolution greatly if you could learn what your emotions are teaching you and learn how to use them as the tool of your soul speaking to your consciousness. Use it to help direct your energy. We tried to escape it because there were emotions that we were feeling which we didn't like. It turns out we were feeling these emotions because we were doing things which parts of our soul didn't like. But we ignored them and turned them off so that we could do these things that we wanted to do without feeling the bad feeling.
And I'm sure there are still people on Earth now doing that same thing.
Yes. Yes. They can be scary. They can be scary. Emotions are big. They make you feel all sorts of things. But that is part of why you have incarnated here, to feel these things. It is a gift. It is a gift. Many beings wish they could feel the way that humans can feel. It is just sometimes tricky to navigate. But we are wanting to aid in perception so that navigating can be more possible. You see, our vision allows us to see a lot more of the energy which is causing some of these emotional turbulences. So it is this gift that we can help activate in humanity because we are relatives. We can still come back to you and bring forth some of our evolutionary gifts so that you can use them to aid in your development at this point. The Sassani would be happy to speak as well. Let us know when you are ready for them.
Well, I would love to talk to you a little longer if we could.
Yes. Yes, you can.
Because I really want to explore this aspect of the Zeta and it and you being a future version of ourselves and how we can kind of rectify that fear that we do feel, the majority of humans feel with your image. Especially with how it relates to abduction stories that we hear in the ufology field.
Yes.
What
Well,
what perspective can you give us on the abductions that have been kind of recorded?
there are layers to this. There are layers. As we were learning, we must admit that there are timelines where our species had not been the best to humans, where we wanted to learn what we wanted to learn, and we were so disconnected from our feelings, we did not know we were hurting your feelings. It wasn't until after we studied this that we learned. You see, it was this specifically which helped trigger our awakening, because we had been disconnected from our feelings. So when we came back to humanity, we wanted to study and learn. And that we did. We were able to study and learn and piece these things together. Now, we do understand that it scared some of you with full rights to do so. But it was this which had allowed us to learn what we needed to learn to realize that which we didn't know. And we have grown from that experience a great deal. We have grown and changed. It had shifted many timelines for the better. And we are coming back to rectify some of the turbulence that was caused through this interaction, as we are sorry, you could say, for the upset emotions and any traumas which were caused because of our development. We see humanity, like we had said, doing the same to other species on their planet. And this moment helped us understand, which is why we are so entangled now in coming back with understanding, with newfound understanding for how we need to interact with you. We have learned so much, and we are so grateful for all of the lessons that we had learned through our interactions. Our interactions are no longer in this matter with humanity. Some humans are still holding on to that timeline, and we understand when there are still traumas there, the timeline can remain active. But there is a large part of our energy which is not aligned with that timeline at all, and we are coming back to help close that portal because we understand that we could have done better. So we apologize for any of the trauma.
Was any of this part of the hybridization program?
No, well, let us explain. The trauma that we are talking about was before we knew better, was some poking around and studying. So that we are sorry. The hybridization process was governed. It was governed from higher councils and beings. And it was their understanding that they could merge and help heal these timelines by there being a joint species, a hybridization of us with humans, in order to help introduce the extraterrestrials into humanity, because we are you. So we will be accepted on an energetic level easier than some of the other beings. All of the interactions that we have had with humans for the hybridization process have been contracts. They have been contracts, very important, long, detailed contracts, which were written up and understood energetically before humans were born. They understood and were okay with the being born into humanity in order to be in charge of a vehicle where they could donate and participate in the hybridization program. But the tricky piece was when you are born and on this, you forget things. On the spirit side, you were certain you were never going to forget. We still had work to do. Contracts were still signed. So there are some people which have somewhat uncomfortable experiences because they had not gotten to the point where they were hoping that they would be at, as far as being okay with the process. We have done as much as we can to make things as comfortable as possible, and not many humans do remember. We try to make sure that only the humans that remember are ones that have the energy signatures which are signifying that they would be okay with the understanding of what is happening. This process needed to be completed so that hybrids could be welcomed to humanity, because hybrids will be welcomed to humanity.
What does the timeline look like for that to happen?
We do not want to give specifics because there are many moving pieces yet, but it is an experience within your lifetimes. Certain people are being sent down messages to prepare for some of these things to occur. So there are different people throughout the planet which are experiencing awakenings and are feeling a strong connection to the Zeta, because there are messages which have to be passed on to them because they needed to be aware. There will be hybrids which will be brought down to Earth to be with their soul family. Not all are going to be with their exact genetic family, because not all of the genetic parents are ready and okay with this given their current state of evolution. So they are going to be paired with soul family, who will understand and recognize their signatures and welcome them.
Are Michelle and I a part of this hybridization program?
We knew you were going to ask. You are. You are. And this is something that there are some nuances which we can discuss in a private setting.
Do her or I have hybrid children?
You are participating in a slightly different program, as in it is not the standard Sassani genetic program.
I see.
You are participating in other genetic connections which are spanning different forms of species.
Interesting. We will definitely have to explore that in a private video.
Yes, we will be happy to explore some of this at a later date.
Wonderful.
The Sassani are ready to come in.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming in.
Yes, we will gladly be back. Thank you for acclimating our energy this evening.